Welcome to the Intuitive Websites Internet Marketing Podcast, bringing you the country's top podcast on the subject of internet marketing, with your hosts Glenn Thayer and the CEO of Intuitive Websites, Thomas Young.
Folks, welcome back to another podcast. Tom and I have been talking a lot about mobile devices and exactly what does that mean for the website experience. You know, how are people using them these days? Are they just using them to text? Are they using them to buy stuff online? You know, you got the iPhone and the Androids and the Blackberries, and then we have the iPads now, and now everybody else is starting to the resurgence of the tablet is now coming out. I saw that like Samsung and a couple other manufacturers are having these out. And you know, let's kind of dive in. Let's really look at what does that mean. You've got these really great mobile devices that are out there.
Absolutely.
But what does that mean for all of us? You know, not only from a website development standpoint, but from everything else.
Well, you know, I want to kind of take a step back and talk a little bit about the history of computing, which a lot of people think about and maybe know something about. But the you know, computers used to be building size, okay, and now they're iPhone size. So, what does that mean, and how did that happen, and why is that important for us in web marketing? What I want to do first is recommend a book to people. I think that will really help with understanding the future of mobile devices, where we're going, and what's coming up. And that book is called Dealers of Lightning, and I'll put it on the blog so you can look it up. But it's a story of the Palo Alto Research Center, which was the research center that was funded by Xerox that eventually led to the launch of the personal computer. And it was started in the late 60s, and it's a fascinating read. But there was a time in the late 60s when people could not fathom the idea that a computer was something that was for personal use. If you can imagine that. There was a time when people didn't think. And there's probably a time when people didn't think folks would ride around in cars either. So, I mean, there's always been that mindset shift that has to happen. And with technology, it's just been amazing how that's happened. So, we had computers the size of buildings, then we had computers the size of rooms, then we had computers the size of desks, then we had portable computers that were the size of suitcases, but they were portable. And then we had the desktop, which we still use today, and we had laptops. And of course, laptops now are so powerful that they do pretty much everything desktops do. And the laptop has been kind of a pseudo-portable device. The reason being is that, especially on PCs and even some Macs, it's just a little bit of a pain to boot it up and wait for it and then sit it on your lap and stuff. So it's not a truly portable device. It's kind of somewhat portable. You can take it and set it up in an office and work with it, and that works just fine. And there's been some attempts at a tablet computer that failed because they didn't bridge the gap between this pseudo portability thing and really portable and usable. And so what happened is that Apple came out with the iPhone. And the iPhone was great as a smartphone and could do all this stuff, but the bottom line is it's too small. It's just too small. And so many people wear reading glasses and all that, and you just can't see what you need to see in a device that small. So then they came up with a bigger iPhone, which they called the iPad.
Minus the phone.
Minus the phone, and then they'd probably see a phone in the iPad in the future. But anyway, you've got the iPad. And so the iPad was a revolutionary device that people are slow to get a handle on. And of course, Apple thinks it's great, and they would, and they're marketing it and everything. But it is a revolutionary device. And what it has spawned is the truly portable laptop. The laptop that is something you stick under your arm and you run down the hall and you sit down and type an email and so forth. And so what's happened in web marketing now as far as growing your business through iPads is we have seen this pretty substantial surge in the amount of people using iPads, not just to surf the web, but to buy products. And that's something you didn't see in the phones, in the smartphones. And of course, we didn't see it at all in the previous versions of tablets. So what's going to happen with the future of this is that the iPad's a great device, but there's going to be lots of imitations of the iPad. And there's going to be lots of people that just don't want to buy an Apple product. They want to buy something else, be different or whatever, which is real interesting when you think that Apple's original slogan was "Be different, think different." But there's this. So you're going to see a lot of this tablet type computing coming up, and I think we're going to get to the point where there will be people eventually that will just say, I don't think I need the laptop to come with me anymore. I think it can just stay in the office. Or I don't need the laptop. I want a real powerful processing computer that can stay in my office. And, the iPad will come with me on my trip or do whatever I need it to do.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because I have I don't own an iPad, and over the last couple months, I've found that I'm starting to develop a severe condition called iPad envy, and it is funny because at first it was a joke. It was like, you have iPad envy, and I was like, well, yeah, no, but I didn't see a whole lot of reasons to use it. And then I sat down with a colleague of mine about 6 months ago and started to go through. I'm like, how do you use it? Mm-hmm. How do you use it when you travel? He's like, yeah, because obviously, yeah, can you get email? Yeah, you find a Wi-Fi hotspot, you can get email. It
is the best for travel. That's probably the number one use, I think, as far as a business person, is travel.
Right, but there's that. I'm like, okay, great. So you have your email. I'm like, I can get my email on my iPhone. Yes, I do have an iPhone. So I was like, I can get it on my iPhone. Well, he says, but that's not all. He's like, I have all my presentations. He's like, I'm a Mac guy, and I'm a Mac guy too. So I was like, yeah. He's like, well, I have my keynotes on here. He's like, I can tweak my keynote presentations, and I put my adapter into the back,
play right through the projector, sure,
into the back, and I plug it directly into the VGA, so I can run that.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that we're still in the adopter stage for the iPad. Technology goes through early adopters, then the adopters, then it goes to more of a mature phase and so forth, then a new product comes out. Well, we're still in the early phases. There's still some tweaking to be done. Even between the Mac and the iPad, there's still some tweaking to be done. So what people need to know, I think, about mobile devices is that it's not a trend. And that size does matter.
You would say that.
Yeah, that's right. It does, because the iPhone was just too small to really navigate the web. But the iPad is big enough to navigate the web, but it's small enough to just tuck away under your arm or, go into a briefcase, or it's just, smaller than a notepad. So what we have to do as far as web marketers is, number one, go look at the trends in your data around how iPads are being used. And number two, it's going to take simplicity of a website to another level. We've talked a lot about making websites simple and keeping them clean and so forth. The iPad has to demand that, because the screen is going to be half the size of the average laptop. Maybe a little bigger, but about half the size of the average laptop. So what that means is you've got to do more with less space, and it's got to be very intuitive, and it's a touch screen, so you can't give people a lot of options on a touch screen. I mean, you just think about it. Your fingers are only so thick, and it's messy. So you've got to think more strategically about your website. You've got to think more about the key things that people use, and you've got to develop a site just for sure for the iPhone through your apps. But also think about whether or not you want to develop an application for your business for the iPhone, iPad, as opposed to a website, which is another trend that I think is going to absolutely explode. The success of this is going to be the strategy. Now, a lot of big companies are developing apps. You can get an app for probably just about any corporation. Why you get a Pepsi app? Get the Pepsi app. Why?
Well, see, and that's
right now it's just to have it, But what's the strategy? And what size company should have this kind of app? And I think that there's opportunities there if you think about it strategically. But the number one purpose is that you have a mission objective for the app, and that it's easy to use. It's easier to use on your website, let's say.
Well, we talk and we go way, way, way back. I mean, you can go back 60 podcasts ago and listen to usability when we talk about usability and exactly what we're doing with that. Well, we talk about usability testing on the web all the time, and we beat that to death.
Yeah.
But are we doing usability testing on an iPhone? Are we doing the usability tested on the Android platform, on the BlackBerry platform, on the iPad platform? Because there's something very, very different. There's two things that you're dealing with. Is right now, if I'm not mistaken, I know I can't see Flash content on my iPhone, and I think that's on the iPad. So if you've got Flash content on your site, it doesn't show up.
It's a very good point. A very good point. You've got to look at your websites, and you've got to ask users to experiment with your site on the iPad. I'm looking at some data here on one of our websites that gets several thousand visitors a month. And if I go back to...
This is one of the e-commerce sites,
right? It's an e-commerce site. I wanted to do e-commerce because you can see conversions. But if I go back to late 2009, And we were getting 50 visits a week, maybe 80 visits a week on mobile devices. If I go currently and look at what we're doing, we're getting 500 visits a week at its peak, 400 to 500 visits a week.
And this is on mobile devices.
This is mobile devices, and this is totally the impact of the iPad. Now, if I look at the iPad and compare it to other devices, the iPhone is still ahead, and about half the visits are on the iPad. But the conversions are twice as much on the iPad than they are the iPhone. And it just makes sense. The iPhone is just a little too small to actually buy stuff on, whereas the iPad's perfect, and you can sit down on your couch and you can make a purchase. This trend is only going to continue, and I think that we saw the surge over the holiday buying period, and we saw it drop off a little bit, but it's still well above where it was even a few months ago. And like I said, the conversion rate's really critical. So for this client in particular, we're looking at developing and using a Magento app that people can download that are regular customers, and they can come back to the app to purchase. And we're also developing a website that's very easy to use on the iPad and with a touchscreen.
Well, this brings me to the question of mobile apps versus websites, because I'm one of those folks that, hey, here's the Amazon.com app, here's the Borders.com app. For places that I go and buy things normally for e-commerce, I would never download an app. I'm the person who's like, well, here we have an app. I'm like, don't care. It's not relevant. It doesn't
You've
have
got to
relevant.
be a pretty loyal customer to do that.
It doesn't have relevant information enough for me, and I was like, why would I want to go get an app that's going to clutter up my desktop, if you will, on my iPhone? It's just another thing of clutter when I can just go to Safari and open Safari up and go directly to the website and do what I need to do.
You've got to be a loyal customer, and it's a way that for, let's say if we have a client right now that may have 100, 150,000 loyal customers. That's fairly small for a company, for a corporation. But let's say that 2,000 or 3,000 of them are loyal, and they would buy an app. It's probably worth it to do that.
Or even a free app, because this is more, we're in the free economy right now.
I think this would be a free app. I think I'm talking about free apps.
Yeah, because paid apps are different. I think paid apps have paid apps has their place, and I think that's another podcast.
That's another podcast.
For free, when you're doing web marketing, obviously free is the right thing. But even having, what's the incentive to take the time to download the app, and then usability, and then so once you have it, great. What use are you going to get out of it? What value are you providing? What have you seen, Tom? Have you seen anything?
Well, this is brand new. I mean, what I've seen is that smart web marketing companies, like say a Starbucks or an Amazon or a Borders, people that are getting into web marketing and have that target base, they're doing it really well. I mean, Facebook, I don't see their stats, but I would bet you that they are seeing an incredible amount of surge in traffic because now people can post from their phones and their iPads. And they're probably seeing even a bigger curve than we're seeing with our client as far as usage on these mobile devices. And it's because their app is very simple and easy to use. The smaller company, once again, it's about your strategy. I think the number one thing, though, is to just make sure that your website looks good on an iPad, is easy to use, and that people can actually purchase from the iPad.
Well, that brings up another thing, is having a mobile website, having a mobile version where the web will go through, it'll query your website, go to the web server and say, hey, I'm coming from a mobile device, send me the mobile version. Yeah,
and you need to be in a platform that supports that, and so you don't have to build this from scratch. Joomla and Magento, the two platforms that we use, open source platforms, they both automatically convert. They can sense when someone's picking up the website on the mobile device, and they convert it. I think that you've got to go one step further and look at that conversion and make sure it looks okay and it functions well. And that's one of the things that we do with our sites.
Because I have found that there's times I travel a lot and I fly a lot, and I go to a lot of the websites with some of these major airlines, and the mobile website doesn't give me enough options, doesn't give me what I need to be able to process. If I need to change a flight or something like that, it's like, yeah, okay, now I got to call. What if I got to book a flight? Well, I've had challenges on a mobile site, and I've had to just go back and pull out my laptop and pull up Wi-Fi and buy a ticket that way.
Well, the stats and the data show beyond a doubt that the fastest growing devices used to access the internet are the iPads, the iPhones, and then the Android is number 3 Although we want to be clear here, the iPad is 4 times bigger than the Android. The iPhone is 4 times bigger than the Android. The iPad is twice as big as the Android.
And we're talking about users.
For users, right. And the BlackBerry is about half the Android. And then you've got iPad, which is half the iPods, which are half the BlackBerries. So Apple still has a very strong foothold.
And we're talking like the Touch, the iPod Touch.
iPod Touch, right. But we'll have to watch it. I mean, that there could be a surge from Android and BlackBerry users. Haven't seen it yet, but we'll have to keep an eye on that.
Well, what should our listeners be looking out for an action item plan for this?
Well, go back, look at your web stats, and click on the mobile devices link that is in Google Analytics. If you don't have Google Analytics set up, you really need to. There's just a wealth of data there.
And we have a podcast on that if you're wondering how that works.
We do. And then go back and use, like Glenn said, get a couple of the most popular mobile devices, definitely an iPhone, iPad, and Android, and go look at your website and see how easy it is to use. And in fact, maybe even do a couple user testing scenarios to see how well that works. And then research and survey the possibilities of more specific modifications to your website for mobile devices or the development of an application. And also, just to throw this in, the application doesn't just have to be your website. The application could be anything that relates to your market space or adds value. And we might do a podcast in the future on downloadable applications as a way to market your business. And then finally, set in motion a plan that meets the needs of mobile device users. So you almost want to get inside their head and think, if I'm going to interact with my company on a mobile device, how am I going to do it? When am I going to do it? And what am I going to be looking for as I do that? And I think that one of the things you can look at for, say, the iPad is that it's awesome when you're traveling. It's awesome when you have an impromptu meeting that you have to grab something and go to. And it's awesome when you're sitting on the couch and someone's watching a TV show and you just want to surf the web and look around. So keep those things in mind. Get inside the head of your mobile users and meet their needs. I think it's a great way to market your business.
Tom, you just brought up a great idea for me. Is I might just have to go out and buy an iPad for a business marketing purpose.
There you go.
Hey, I need this user testing. I need this for user testing to see what my web presence looks like on the iPad.
There you go.
Well, thanks so much, folks. As always, if you have any questions, comments, send them out to us at info@intuitivewebsites.com. We'll be happy to take those, and we'll catch you around the next time on our next podcast. Thanks for joining us.
This has been an Intuitive Websites Internet Marketing Podcast. For more information and to see all the available podcasts and much more, visit intuitiveblog.com. If you have a website you would like us to review or an issue you would like to see covered in future podcasts, email us at info@intuitivewebsites.com.